What's up, shooters? John here. I just wrapped up a podcast with Phil and one of our team members, Eric Dioro. Eric is also a former Marine Scout sniper. He's been working with us for the last year. He's taught a couple courses this past, during 2025. And he hopped on with us for episode 3. Episode 3, we picked up right where Phil and I left off on episode 2, answering the questions that Phil posted to you all on Instagram. I'm really liking that format and that flow. It's real easy to have a conversation, and it's great to be able to answer you guys' questions in a timely manner and not necessarily directly, still indirectly, but you're getting not only one person's point of view, but you're getting multiple people's point of view. They're having a conversation about it. It's provoking thought and also other questions. So we're really liking this. Keep the questions coming. Keep the feedback coming. If you guys, have differentiating opinions that we put out on the podcast, please let us know. Give us a comment. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. We're really interested. We really like this format, and we're looking forward to continuing it. Right, for this one, we answered questions about bag riders and different pressures into the weapon system. We talked carbon versus steel barrels for different applications, moving targets. We talked barrel break-in, and different procedures there. And we talked about some of the biggest mistakes we made when we were new shooters, right, and how we would go about things differently. We touched on a little bit of PRS and NRL drama based off one of the questions, but we really don't get into that. None of us really are big drama folks, right? And then we talked about why fundamentals or sound fundamentals will always be, upgrades in gear and equipment, right? So overall, a great conversation. Really liked it. Eric was having a little bit of internet trouble up there in Idaho. Maybe he was getting some weather or something, but nonetheless, great conversation, great podcast. Hope you guys enjoy episode 3. Let us know what you think.
Good morning, Vietnam. Dude, did you ever watch that movie?
Yeah, long time ago. But when people say that now, I just think of Michael Scott from The Office.
Oh, really? Robin Williams, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Michael starts a
Yeah,
office or a meeting like that in one of the episodes and
yeah,
doesn't get any reaction. Or no, he starts like a public presentation in front
yeah.
of like a couple hundred people and gets no
Oh,
response.
oh no.
Yeah.
That's like me when I tell jokes in class. No response. Or even if I tell it at my house, and Zoe doesn't give me the time of day anymore.
That's why you gotta drop the weed whacker joke.
Yeah, seriously. That's a classic. That's definitely one for another episode. I gotta turn off the alarms here on my Ring camera. So, good morning, everybody. It is 5:22 MST. For John, it's an hour later at CST. And, one of the things that we've had a hard time doing because we're all on different time zones and because some people work for a living, aka John and not me, we always have conflicting schedules. So we're out here in the morning again. We did record the last one Sunday morning, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was
Yeah.
Sunday morning.
Yeah. And so we just want to try to keep up the momentum with this podcast. A lot of good feedback on the last podcast with questions. And there was a few questions that we never really got to. I'm going to pull them up. And this time we're trying to get through them a little more faster or more detailed. Let us know in the comments or let us know via YouTube or sending us an Instagram DM if you want us to really go thorough. I guess that's a opportunity to go thorough is on podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of great questions, a lot of great feedback on the first one. But to continue where we left off, I talked about this Peabody Chad. He's been super active with a lot of my stuff lately, which has been awesome. His question is input pressures and bag riders versus light downward pressure / building a bridge.
What is the question?
Input pressures and bag riders versus light downward pressure building a bridge?
I'm just trying to understand. Okay. For everyone out there, I'm a smooth brain. Okay. So sometimes it takes me a second to think things over. All right. All right. So he's comparing using a bag rider and filling that negative space with the bag to find the sweet spot as far as like micro elevation adjustments, or using the bridge technique and then having like slight downward pressure into the bag, right? So upwards, vice downwards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think for me, it's both, and I meet in the middle, right? Because I always want to use the bridge technique to establish a positive and strong rifle to shoulder connection, right? That way I'm connected to the rifle. But I also am using my support hand and these fingers to manipulate the bag, and I'm pinching the buttstock, right? With my forefinger and my thumb, or my index finger and my thumb. So what I do, right, to alleviate muzzle rise when the rifle recoils and the depressing of my rear bag, is I'll pinch that material with these fingers and my thumb and fill that space up to the point where it can't move anymore. All right. And I actually just did this to demo for a student in Texas, in the Texas courses. And when you do that and you don't allow that buttstock to drop, your rifle will track straight back. Like I was demoing, a rearward pull into my shoulder and that technique for recoil management, and the reticle was not leaving the target, right?
Yeah.
It was just straight back.
Yeah.
And he was pretty surprised to see that, and then started implementing those techniques and had a huge 180-degree shift in his ability to manage recoil, shooting his 308. So I think that's probably where I fall on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of the two. I'm still going to build a bridge. I ease down into it, have that good rifle shoulder connection, and then I'm using the bag with support of a bag rider or just my buttstock in general, fill in the negative space, but I'm still controlling the buttstock. Okay.
So if you dissect the pressures that we put onto a rifle system, it's usually our touch points, right? So we've got our rifle to shoulder connection, our hand, our face, and our support. So those 4 points of contact. Also, this is where I define ergonomics of why for us, we're KRG shills, is because for us the KRG just feels like home, right? Because of the touch points that the KRG has, it just feels comfortable. And so if we look at those pressures or those touch points, right, and we isolate how we're applying pressure, whether it be upward, downward, to the side, and realistically there should be no lateral. That's where you usually get those jumps. But usually the lateral does come from the fact that even as a right-handed shooter, you can't bring that buttstock, any center line than when it's touching your neck, right? So there's going to be a little bit of left, or down right kind of angular pressure as you kind of put your face down behind the gun. Now, one of the things that I'll say, number one, is that obviously not every shot is perfect, and it's one of those things that when I'm shooting and I'm allowing my subconscious to just drive my ability to run a gun, right? No matter what, when I take my shot, my brain comes out of subconscious into conscious to tell me where my reticle's at. It's like the very first thing that happens after follow through and recovery is okay, hey, where did my reticle go? Because that usually tells me what is going on with my body based off of how the recoil impulses, right? We talk about this in our positional triangle, when you build a shooting position based off of stability, recoil management, and comfort. You could have a good shooting position, or so you could think that you have a good shooting position if you're stable, but if you have poor recoil management, then, we believe that it's not a good shooting position. So at the end of the day, what happens is our brain tells us, okay, hey, if I came off that far off recoil, I'm putting a pressure into the rifle that's causing that. And what I've also noticed is that the larger my jump in terms of recoil management, the bigger the point of aim, point of impact shift that I'm having with my zero. If that does that make sense? Like if I were to shoot 100 yards to check my zero, if I have if I take 3 clean shots and like my reticle does the same pattern all 3 times, I'm most likely going to be within that cone of my accuracy, right? But if I have a 4th shot and my recoil management look like complete trash compared to the other first 3, right, where they're not in the same kind of cadence or window, right, it's usually also a shift in my point of aim or point of impact.
Yeah. I would say more times than not, if I recognize that the reticle is jumping irregularly or more than normal, then I would agree with you. Sometimes your recoil management is not there and it feels like it, and then the impact's still where you wanted it to be, but
yeah,
I would say more times than not, it's as you described.
2 other things I want to touch on for Chad is what I call the handoff. And so when you build the bridge, right, we know that like when you're building that bridge, the barrel's pointed downward. You're gonna obviously have some type of forward pressure mounting the rifle system. As soon as you break level or even with the rifle system and you're pretty much now getting on the same plane as the target, I do a handoff between that forward load, or that, it's not even a forward load, but just that natural forward pressure into a rear load with my firing hand, which usually I start off with about the, weight of the rifle. But again, this is one of those things that's kind of subject to, there's a lot of subjectivity to it, because 40% is different than your 40% and vice versa. It's just playing around with what works for you, but you don't want to really grip it and pull that into you to where you're not able to sustain that rate of fire or that pressure. Okay. But this goes back to like the reason why we don't teach muscular relaxation anymore, because realistically, when I'm driving my gun, especially in a 90 second, 120 second stage, I'm applying pressure to that rifle system to help control recoil and stability. So that was my second point that I want to talk about. And my third is one thing I do notice with regard to like pressures and mounting a rifle is if your rifle is not set up, all of this doesn't mean jack crap to you, because you're going to be just chasing your tail in terms of like, how come they're getting these results and I'm not seeing exactly what they're seeing. It probably means that your rifle setup is jacked up. And one of the things that I noticed, especially as chassis and stuff like that came out, when we do the rifle setup class, people are so they have such a hard on using all of their freaking adjustments on their chassis, right? Because they bought their $2,000 chassis. Like, oh, I got to use every single. So when we adjust their length of pull or adjust their cheek riser, the last thing they want to do is adjust their butt pad cant, right? And so it's cocked off to the side, and it just really messes them up. So what I'd say is that the butt pad, like all my rifles, I mean, even on my stocks where you can adjust can't adjust the cant of the buttstock, like they're all like in the fixed position, they come stock, right? And I'd say that improvement really only touches the last like 5%, even if that, right, of like your rifle setup, maybe even less than that. So if you're struggling, correct your buttstock back to center, right, or whatever that normal fixed position is. If you don't know where that is, try to get your buttstock placement to where it's just about halfway through the center of the buttstock, to where you've got, let's say, an inch protruding up and an inch protruding down, depending on what chassis that you have. Don't raise it up, because if you try to raise it up, like if you raised up the butt pad and then you try to use the technique of building the bridge, you're in theory lowering your center of bore line, because when you're bringing the butt pad up and you're also trying to use the high rifle to shoulder connection, the bore is lower than what you want it. Does that make sense? So you almost want to reverse it to where if you do want to have this center bore line, you'd have to drop the buttstock. You know, and that compounds to like guys that, I know I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm sorry, John. Guys that are using the bag technique, the rear bag technique on a heavy bag, and they just kind of settle in. Yeah, and they compensate for the lack thereof bridge that they have, a rifle to shoulder connection, by just jacking up their buttstock in the prone. And so in theory it's higher, but they're still relying mainly on the bag to control the effects of recoil and stability. Off my soapbox.
No, I mean, I think we beat that one pretty good.
I'm gonna beat it. I love it. That's honestly my favorite, because like I hear it all the time. It's like I can't get comfortable, or I can't. And it's usually stemming from one of those things. Okay, moving on. So Chad, hopefully that answers your question as well as everyone else's. Moving on to Crangstar 808. Drama, and more PRS NRL drama. We're not into the drama. We don't really care what's going on with the PRS or NRL. Not that it obviously doesn't affect maybe the shooting community, but looking at it just from the fact that the PRS and the NRL, obviously their own entities are going to have their issues, but it's still, as long as you don't look at it and try to get it involved into that, it's still the best way or opportunity to get out and train in ways that you would never train at your home range yourself, right? With you and your buddy, So that's all I'll say.
I'd say just on that, I mean, no matter where you go, there's always going to be the human error, right?
Yeah.
Like NRL and PRS can have all their rules and their things set in place to make things fair and even and friendly and welcoming, and then humans will get in there and mess it up. So it's like that everywhere.
Like the Marine Corps? No comment? No, just kidding.
Everywhere.
I can say that because I'm out now. Next question, G Stovey 6. What is the shooting position that looks simple to a new shooter but is actually pretty difficult? The effing standing position. That would be mine. Like
a low standing?
No, the low standing looks hard, and it is hard.
But yeah, that's true. It just looks like
I think that it's all varied between shooters. I actually personally love the standing position. Like I'll prefer the standing position over, let's say, like a seated. Even though the seated is obviously going to be a little bit more stable. I think in terms of just setup, and that I'm old now, like getting down to the ground and like bending over, and I think this all goes back to bio and body mechanics, right? There's a lot of guys that come through our class that can't sit and do like a cross-legged sitting. I mean, you even saw that at sniper school, right? With kids.
I'm terrible. I mean, my hips like hate sitting cross-legged.
Yeah.
And that's been a thing since, like, it's not because I'm getting older and inflexible and stuff like that. Like, even when I've been super, like, super disciplined, like always, doing pre-workout stuff, post-workout stuff, stretching, this and that, like my hips are always tight like that. And it's been that way since I was a kid. So like sitting cross-legged, I hate it. So I always have like a really unorthodox sitting position. I think Tim Smaker was the only guy that ever liked it. He was like, "Oh man, that's a badass sitting position you got right there." And then like you got Dan Gillen, who's like, "What the fuck are you doing over there, man?" But no, I'd definitely say like flexibility comes into it, right? For some people, they could just drop down into like you just said, for that example, a cross-legged sitting position, and it's just like perfectly natural, right? Others really like to be standing, right? or like, shorter guys can get into that. Like, Eric gets into that really those low standing positions for us. He does it just fine. Right. Yeah, standing is probably one of those ones because it's like we say it when we teach the class, right? Like I stand here all day long. I could just do this all day. But, once you interface with the weapon system and induce that inherent wobble into the system, then it gets a little bit more tricky to manage, right? And you have to be conscious of the pressures you're applying to the rifle, how you're doing it. Because, sure, you can set the rifle up at the right height and get behind it and just have like a touch point and not really input any pressure into the rifle and you'll be pretty stable, but your recoil management is going to be dog shit unless you do something to correct for it. I think another one that maybe it doesn't seem super easy, but like a really low kneeling. Those like when you have like the kung fu poles and you get like those bottom rungs, right? Or the bottom rungs on a ladder, and it's like too low for a sitting and kind of too low for a kneeling. But
and
you like
too
try
high
to
and too high for a prone. Yeah.
But you like try to make it work. It doesn't seem like it would be all that difficult. But when you get like super bent over like that, you get that crazy up and down. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I feel like is never touched on in the community, and I try to do it every now and then. I'm never consistent with it. Is like actually touching on how mobility and flexibility and physical fitness really ties into your ability to shoot. I mean, that's universal, right? But in terms of like, precision shooting and understanding your like how being flexible and having better mobility and stuff like that will just help your your connection to the rifle system. And so, one of the things that I just try to like be mindful of, especially as I get older in my age, is, maintaining with like the mobility workouts that Todd sends me or whatever. So yeah, something to definitely explore if you're just getting into this or whatever is like, depending on how vested you want to get into precision shooting and taking that to the next level, really, I think having a level of functional fitness, you don't have to be the CrossFit Games freaking ninja, right? But, at the end of it, there's a lot of benefits, obviously, other than shooting a precision rifle, but your health benefits with that to shooting. So highly recommend maybe even doing a class of yoga, doing some yoga classes. Claire just actually started getting into yoga classes, which is good for her. Yeah, she's been tied up at the house with mom, and it's kind of hard to leave the baby. So finally, she's kind of like able to get out and do stuff herself. So last night, while I was editing this college video, she got out and did some yoga. So, yeah. Okay. G Stovey, super vague answer, hopefully response. I know we can go into a rabbit hole about like shooting from the standing and techniques and stuff like that, but hopefully that answers your question at the surface level. Then we've got next question is Lieb Her Kron, Liebherr Kron. For guys getting into the long range precision world, what should they focus on?
There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, there's so much, but I think at first just keep it simple, figure out, I would say, I think I would give the advice of basically where we leave off at our foundation course, right? First focus on, making sure your rifle is built properly, put together properly, set up for you properly. Figure out how to, establish a zero, collect your muzzle velocity, right? And then start moving into validating your trajectory, right? So shooting out to distance and getting your ballistic solver, whatever you're using, make sure that's matching up with reality. And then from there, once you can go to the range, zero chrono, and shoot out to distance accurately, really just initially be refining the fundamentals, right? Doing those foundational level drills like building breaks and things like that, and troop lines to work prone mechanics, your wind reading ability, wind calling ability, developing a process, right, for reading and correcting for wind. I think that's probably the first 6 things that I would focus on in the progression, and then as you move into competing or different stuff as you move forward, then you can go expand from there. But I mean, realistically, that's what you're doing every time you go to the range. And then whether you're shooting positionally or in more challenging wind conditions or challenging terrain, like that's when things change, but all the other stuff is going to relatively remain the same. So if you can dial all those in from the get-go, or work there on that checklist, I think that'll set you up for success.
Yeah, that's definitely a great question, just because there's so much to unpack. When you look at our foundation course, it on day one, even with now that we've gone down to 2-day classes, 2-day classes, our foundation course, like, unless we have a small class and we're like blazing through, like we don't leave 100 yards on day one. And people are like, man, that's crazy, right? Going to a long range. But one of the biggest things I think we talked about this maybe yesterday or the other day, about like the difference between precision shooting and long range shooting, right? Like I think one of the things that we want to capitalize on is understanding that, we have precision rifles, but sometimes you're not a precision shooter, right? Like it's easy to shoot long range when you have good dope and a good wind call on a 3 or 4 MOA target. But Scott Satterley said this best. If you guys don't know who Scott is, he's a legend in the long range shooting community. I actually replaced him when I was teaching at Gunworks, and that dude's a mad scientist in itself. But he said, you remember all the small targets that you hit, not the big ones. And I was like, dude, you're absolutely right. And so, when it comes to like shooting with precision, like our goal is to, if your rifle shoots a half minute, even with ammunition, it's in a perfectly good rest or vise or whatever, I highly recommend not putting in a vise. But if you put very minimal human input, if you put in a machine and it shoots a half minute, then the shooter should be able to also drive that capability of that rifle system in any position they find themselves in. That's where we believe our philosophy is at the Cadre. Is like, I don't care if you're standing, kneeling, sitting off a tripod, double or triple pull, tripod rear. If you're in a low standing position, you should be able to shoot that half minute all day. And if you're not, then we need to obviously figure that out. So what I would say, when you first get into precision shooting, is understand the capability of your whole rifle system, right? What that number is, and try to work through that before diving into like, oh, I need to have a better bullet or better rifle system and stuff like that. And actually, yesterday or 2 days ago, I asked a question like, what were your most common mistakes? Because I was planning on doing a video about it. And I got a bunch of responses about, chasing gear and stuff like that, which hopefully we can actually get into in this video. But I would say focus on 100-yard drills. We've got a couple of those. Ow. What's up, Eric?
Dude, I'm really sorry, man. I don't know what was wrong with my internet.
It's all right. We're about 27 minutes in. We were just finishing up a question for guys getting into long range precision world. What should they focus on? Which, yeah, I was talking about just focusing on like 100-yard groups and focusing on their precision. But I built this roadmap before at a previous position that I was in, and it just went along those lines of like, okay, hey, dial in your fundamentals at 100 yards, and then like start diving into things like external ballistics and whatnot, wind reading, positional shooting. But if you don't have your prone mechanics down, everything else is going to be so much harder because you're not able to apply the basic fundamentals of marksmanship from the prone position into other stuff. So, well, Eric, welcome. For those that are new to the Cadre or maybe you've been with the Cadre, Eric is one of our instructors. I know you guys plan on doing a Who is Eric Dioro podcast hopefully in the hopper, but yeah, welcome to the podcast, dude. Your reloading room's looking good.
Yeah. We'll play through it.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my internet, guys. Thanks for having me, Phil, and I appreciate the comment about the reloading room.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, next question. Mitch John 92. Carbon barrels versus comp barrels for everyday guy. I'm gonna give this one to you, Eric.
To me, that depends on the application.
Everyday guy.
Everyday guy, I would say you probably don't need to spend the extra money on a carbon wrap barrel. But if every day to you is backpacking out there and you need a light rifle, then maybe you do need a carbon wrap barrel. Yeah. But for me, for like a trainer, those are expensive barrels, so I try to really only shoot them when I absolutely need to, like that start of a hunting season, gathering dope, and then just take it out. Otherwise, I'm pretty much a all stainless guy.
Yeah, I think Brian Morgan said it best. I talked to him about carbon versus stainless when I was up there last summer. He said carbon's a racing stripe.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has its place, but I think if you had to choose between one or the other and you could only pick one, I'd probably go stainless steel. But to Eric's point, if you are going to just be hiking around with that thing all over the place, not shooting it a crazy amount, and you can afford it in your budget, maybe it is worth it.
You guys are going to Sendero contours or stainless fluted barrels, right, for NRL comps?
Yeah, but that's the play of the game, really. I think we could,
and that's like a specific.
Yeah. And that's really truly to maximize, like, we're, in terms of playing the game, like we're getting our rifle system right at that 16-pound mark and not leaving any room for questioning. And when I built for the longest time, I wanted to build an LE, quote unquote, sniper rifle build. It's like, if I was an LE sniper, this is what I'd carry. And the carbon fiber barrel was on that list, and I built it for the California class with the arrow and the pre-fit. Rifle shoots great, no issues. But I think I talked about it. Like, I'm not a fan of the balance point because of how light the front of the rifle is now with the carbon barrel. You got especially with the Whiskey 3, the folder in the back, and now the Fire 4000 weapon mounted laser rangefinder. I mean, it still sits a little back comparatively up front, and so the balance is off, right? And so like the allure that I had about, like, man, running a carbon barrel shorty would be sick. Like, it's not that sick, when you actually look at the practical application use of, like, okay, if I was running this strictly off a tripod, sure. I mean, even running off a tripod is still going to be rear heavy because you're shifting the connection point when you're clipping in forward of the balance point comparatively when you're just using the bag technique. But yeah, those are solid points. So I'm definitely a steel if you need a steel, and carbon if if you're trying to save weight for that ultra light hunting rig. So
your balance point shifted big time when you put the weapon mounted laser rangefinder on there, right?
Yeah,
that didn't hit.
Yeah,
Because yeah. It's a shorter barrel too, right? Like a 22?
It's a 20-inch, yeah.
20-inch, yeah.
Yeah.
I think on my actual hunting rifle, because I'm using a Manor stock, the balance with the carbon on that is pretty good. But for everything else, like yeah, you need to have to have some weight up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get good balance with my Whiskey 3 Pro and a 24-inch carbon with a like a Mark 5 on it. That's pretty light optic.
Yeah.
It balances pretty well, but
Yeah.
I think you start getting, if I put that like a collis on it, that's a little bit heavier or a heavier optic or shit in the back. Yeah, it'll start to dip.
Yeah.
Right on.
Mitch, John 92. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Clandestine involvement. Opinions on weapon-mounted laser rangefinders versus LRF binos versus dedicated LRFs.
Ooh, this is a good one.
This is a wormhole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh, man.
Eric, I'm gonna let you lead this one off. I want
All
to
right.
hear your thoughts on.
Well, so all right, I'm gonna try to frame this. If I tried the Fire 4000 in California on the rifle, and I absolutely hated it. I hated it so much. It was like super. I mean, I'm 5'6", so like I don't have the best reach. So like it's super awkward for me to have to reach up, even with the controls back near my grip and stuff. Yeah, like T-Rex arms, dude. So it was.
Well, hold on a second. Where did you mount the weapon-mounted laser rangefinder?
I had it up. So I didn't have a diving board, so I had it up front, but I had the controls back near me, like near the pistol, near where my firing hand or my non-firing hand sits. I forget which side I had it on, but I hated it. So I think like yeah, if I had a diving board, it would be great. But I'm running the arc embrace rings. So I don't know if they make a diving board for that or like something to put it on. But regardless, when we put the Fire 4000 with the Night Force configurable spotting scope, that is like the tip of the top. I love that setup. Super awesome. And then I just got GeoPro or the GeoVid Pros, which are also awesome. So I think it's again, not to sound cliche. I think it depends on the application, but I really hated right now for me. Like I don't need a weapon-mounted laser rangefinder because I have the GeoPros and or the GeoVids, and I think with that configurable spotter setup and the laser mounted on top of that, that's like amazing. I don't know. I would rather pick either of those two options over having it on my rifle. Long-winded answer.
All right, John.
Oh, I'm going to default to the it depends on the application, right? I do like, I will say this, like a quality weapon-mounted laser rangefinder on your rifle, a quality piece of equipment that is set up properly is a game changer, right? As a single shooter application. I really enjoy that and I think it has a ton of applicability to law enforcement or military application, right? Even if you were doing like single shooter or individual NRL hunter matches, it might have a place, but I think for me it would stick to like law enforcement or military application, where as a single shooter I might be involved for finding, ranging, and engaging targets all on my own, and have to have that quick workflow, everything right here, not really having to take the time to grab binos or get on a spotter or things like that, right? I think in that application, that'd be my go-to. Elsewhere, whether it be competing or hunting, or just everyday work on the range, I'd prefer either laser rangefinding binoculars or the spotter setup with the laser rangefinder mounted with it and co-aligned to it. I really like those. Phil and I are going to be running a Night Force spotter with a Fire 4000 on it this year. That setup is growing on me. I was hesitant at first just because I really like the ability or the field of view that I get through binos. I really like just the scanning techniques I use with binos themselves. So I was a little hesitant at first, but it's growing on me the more and more I use it. So, yeah. See you, Eric.
No, they're solid. Instead of just jumping on the train of application based, which obviously I agree with. I'm gonna rephrase it in the sense of like asking clandestine involvement questions of, okay, hey, where do you want that weight, right? Because obviously between a weapon mounted laser rangefinder or binos, you're either carrying the weight on the gun or carrying it on your body, right? And in terms of when you're carrying on your gun, now you're increasing speed of being able to find your target at the expense of now it's fixed on your rifle system. So that's a question that you have to ask. Going back to the application base, if you look at team sniper shooters right now, and obviously team sniper matches are starting to grow a lot more in popularity, right? A lot of, which is awesome. You start to see a lot of active duty snipers participate in these, even guys that have gotten out and prefer to stick to the roots versus shoot like PRS or NRL Hunter. You're starting to see a lot of those team guys run weapon mounted laser rangefinders, the Fire 4000, the Maztec Industries, Vortex, and then obviously the higher end like the Mars and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I think for me, I'll always have a backup. I'll always have a primary backup and a tertiary system, right, with regard to getting my range and getting my data to target. That's super important. Especially if you're an NRL Hunter shooter. I hear a lot of times guys that only have one range finding bino and it goes down, batteries die or whatever, right? Matt Alwine, always keeps a spare rangefinder on his pack. And for me, I'll always have. So I've been rolling around with the new Victronics. I shouldn't say. I guess they're not new, but the Victronics 10x42s. That's connected to my Garmin, and then my backup would be my Terrapin X that I keep on my belt, which I use for the longest time, which is a great little laser rangefinder. So I would definitely, I'd say if you're a serious shooter or competitive shooter, you should always have a backup system, if you can afford it, right? But if you just had one, in my opinion, I'd go with laser rangefinding binos.
Yeah.
Because like you can't hit a target that you can't find or see, and you're most likely going to find it first with binos than you are with a rifle, unless you've got Hawkeyes and you're a awesome target detector. So
yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah,
really great way to break that down.
Yeah,
and I would add to it and say, no matter your application, it's never a bad idea to have a backup system, right? So like laser rangefinding binos, or for me when I'm my bino harness, this little side pocket with just a monocular handheld laser rangefinder. The one I have is like a SIG Kilo.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty damn accurate and quick.
Yeah.
So,
if you guys are shooting these matches, like a lot of people sleep on those handheld rangefinders, like from Vortex or from Leopold or whatever. Like, the last thing that they'll do is pick one of those up because it's not super heavy on the price. It's like not a good resale value, but I mean that backup rangefinder carries its weight in gold when you need it. You know what I mean? So if you see those pocket laser rangefinders, I've got like 3 of them, and they're like littered all over between my office, a couple in my truck, right? Because it's just nice to just be like, oh, what range is that, and just grab it real quick. So, okay, clandestine involvement. Hopefully that answers your question. Moving on to K King Jr. 13, an in-depth talk about the fundamentals of marksmanship.
Oof.
Yeah. I feel like we've been kind of already doing that, but yeah. Check out our last podcast that I'll just say that the podcast that me, John, and Solo did that we need to get back to. That lives on my podcast, on my channel, just because we were trying to get our and actually I'll probably post it here as a replay on the Cadres, but essentially we dissect the Marine Corps publications, and we kind of modernize it in just our approach to precision rifle shooting. So I think that podcast got a lot of great feedback, and that's kind of where I direct you to if you really want to hear our take on the fundamentals of marksmanship and a deeper look at it. So yeah. Okay. Unless, John, you got anything else to add to that?
No, that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
That's about like, we could go on for an hour, as you'll see if you check out that other podcast.
Yeah. Next question. Will you ever do a course in Canada? I mean, if we have a venue and a place to host, we'll do courses anywhere, right? So hyperfixation. Will you ever do a course in Canada? Yes. If you can find somebody to host us in a range that will, allow us to do some trainings, we would more than love to come to Canada, our neighbors, and do some classes. I know Rob Furlong teaches up there. If you guys don't know who Rob Furlong is, I think he's got like one of the longest kill shots. I've never actually met him. We've interacted on social media, but I've heard he's a really solid guy and super nice. So definitely check him out if you want to do some training with someone that's legit. Next is PRS noob. Importance or lack thereof of properly breaking in a barrel on a PRS rifle, and what is proper? How to do the air quotes in there.
I'm probably wrong, but I just shoot it. Yeah. That's my answer. I just shoot the rifle. Haven't had any issues. So I think this is one of those things that you can go 10 different ways, right? Like cleaning. I know guys that clean extremely detailed, very regimented. And then I know other guys, Corey, that don't ever clean and do just fine in the competitive scene. So.
Oh, Corey Bogus.
I wasn't gonna fully name drop, but yeah, Mr. Bogus.
For some reason, I was thinking when you said Corey, I was like, wait,
Robinson?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I talked to Corey when we were shooting one time, and I was like, "Hey, just out of curiosity, with your dasher, what do you do for cleaning?"
Yeah. No, I know, like, I know this. Yeah.
He's like, "I don't."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, all right, cool."
And but, he'll even throw shade on his I'm gonna call him out. He'll even throw shade on his after action, like his match after action. He's like, dude, I've got 2,000 rounds down this barrel and I haven't cleaned it since, and I still got a top 10. And I'm like,
yeah, that's what I mean, though.
Yeah,
he still goes out there and shoots lights out. That's it.
But if it was clean, would you have won the match? That's the question that you could ask yourself.
That's fair, but we're talking about barrel breaking, not cleaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So John's going to stand by his answer, and if someone wants to correct me, please feel free to do so. But I just shoot the rifle conservatively at first, and That's about it.
See, I don't go conservatively.
I don't think you know what that word means.
I don't think so either.
I definitely should do a test on this. I've been wanting to. It's just so hard because at the end of the day, what I've learned is every barrels have their own personality, right? Even if you have the same exact lot number or, barrel cut, like usually for me as a competitive shooter, I get barrels in batches of 2 or 3, right? That are probably coming off from the same line. And sometimes one barrel to another is not the same. And what I'll say is, in terms of how I break a barrel in is like John says, I just shoot it. But what I do is I track the first velocity out of, say, like hand loads, and it's a brand new 6.5 Creedmoor. Is I'll pick one charge weight, like 41 grains of H4350 behind a 147, and I'll shoot the first 10 rounds out of that thing to bore sight and get my initial velocity. And then from rounds 11 through 100, I just do some practice with it, right? Whether that's building breaks, fundamentals, right? I get obviously my initial like group size or whatever, but really I care about the velocity. A couple of things you're going to notice if you track your velocity. I did this with a magneto speed. Is your first 10 rounds, like, or your first like initial shots, like your ESs and SDs are going to be crazy, right? Like high ESs, but then as that barrel kind of wears in, you'll start to see your SDs and ESs shrink. Brian Litz also did a case study on this and on applied ballistics, which I found the same kind of data. But anyways, after 100 rounds, I'll recheck velocity, and if I've seen that increase, and I've also seen a decrease with the same load in my SDs and ESs, I know that the rifle is now essentially ready to do some type of load development in terms of like, okay, hey, what charge weight do I want to use for this barrel based off the speed I want to run, right? Versus completely chasing a load and, within the first 100 rounds and then, not really getting a velocity. So I truly don't true my system or anything like that until the rifle's seen at least 100, sometimes even 150 rounds, and it's all barrel and cartridge dependent. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer.
I personally, I shoot 20 rounds pretty quickly, clean it, and then I just go. Yeah. And then I measure velocity as well. But to my understanding, the throat is one of the most important parts of the barrel, right? So I want to get, like, my philosophy behind it is just getting that hot, getting some rounds behind it, so I'm actually the barrel that I just got for this NRL Hunter rifle, sitting at Marks right now, I just happen to have like a bunch of factory ammo, so I'm not even going to mess around with hand loads. I'm just going to shoot 200 rounds of factory Hornady ammo and use that brass.
This is probably an unpopular opinion, but I've talked about this in a recent cleaning video I did with our law enforcement sniper, is investing in a bore scope. They're so cheap nowadays, but and when you invest in a bore scope, you're not like getting crazy in terms of like, oh, there's a little pit here. That's the reason why my barrel's shooting like shit. But what you're doing is you're understanding what a baseline is, first off, of like what a clean barrel looks like, right? And again, if you're a serious shooter, like one thing I cannot stress enough is like taking ownership of your rifle and like understanding it inside and out. And so that is like in terms of like, okay, well, what are the things I'm going to learn about this rifle system by having a bore scope? Number one, when it's dirty compared to when it's clean, right? And then also as you're cleaning, we talked about this in our cleaning class, is when you first have a brand new barrel, it's going to be easier to clean the carbon and copper, especially the copper residue out of it, in the first 500 to 750 rounds, depending on how you're shooting it, right? If you're shooting it like Eric, maybe 300, but if you're shooting it like any other normal person, it probably gives you like 750 to 1,000, right? But what I've noticed is, I don't know if you guys know, John, you have a bore scope, right? But as the barrel wears out, what I've noticed is now the copper starts to build up a little more aggressively, and it's harder to scrub out, right? So I don't want to say my cleaning routine changes as like as as the barrel works in, but I'm just more aware of that. Hey, I've got a little bit more copper residue, right? I'm still gonna stick with my same system and consistency of 10 to 15 strokes or whatever that case is, right? But if I do notice a like weird flyers all the time, or my groups are opening up and I know I'm way below my round count where the barrel should be not even then I'll deep clean it, where like I'm essentially start using like heavy shit to pull all the copper out to see if I can to see if that's the issue. But you're only going to know that if you own a bore scope.
Yeah, bring it back to as close as you can to baseline.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think if we're talking about cleaning, I think I was over cleaning actually for a while, because I was cleaning like every 250 rounds. I was shooting factory Hornady ammo and notorious for developing carbon rings, right? So I was cleaning like every 200 rounds, because around 250 rounds I'd see a carbon ring. And then I don't know when I put, I think, 800 rounds without cleaning, and the rifle shoots better than it did when I was cleaning it every 250 rounds. Like it's more consistent across the board. But shooting factory ammo, I think it could have been like lot number variations, stuff like that, a bunch of different variables. But now I think I'm just gonna clean when the rifle tells me to, basically.
Yeah. That's another. I honestly, if there's not a reason to get a bore scope, it's just the what's the word I'm looking for? Essentially, being able to detect early if you do have a carbon ring, which is probably the worst thing that you could have on a rifle.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, yeah. Long-winded answer that we got into cleaning, but yeah, definitely important, right? PRS.
I definitely think cleaning is a natural segue as far as when you talk like
for
barrel
sure.
breaking.
For sure.
1,000%.
Yeah. It's one and the same, I would say.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Next question is Bam Too Rowdy. This is Matt. Him and I went to cyber school together in Hawaii.
Matt,
solid.
You have to say it.
God, I can't think of his freaking last name.
He sounds like he likes the OG Green Monsters.
Yeah.
Which, hey, and I do too. But
he was on the East Coast. God, he's gonna kill me. Him and Ryan Mobley were partners at cyber school. They were both sergeants, and they went to Afghanistan afterwards, after our Hawaii, and they just did work. Anyways, his only, it's not even a question, it's just Nickelback.
Oh yeah, I saw
but
that.
I appreciate you saying that, Matt. Hope you're doing well, bro. I don't know if you listen to our podcast, but here we are. So next question, Spencer Bangerter. Tips on recording solid videos for YouTube. I'm glad that you asked this question, because I just had a conversation with both my business partners and Eric about this. Just effing send it. I don't care what it looks like. You don't care. The only way you get better at recording videos on YouTube is by doing it, just like sending wind calls, right? I have I don't know if people know this, but I have a bachelor's in cinematography now, because I decided to go back to school the last couple of years. Mainly because I wanted to have a degree in something, and I knew that was the only thing that I was kind of passionate about. But at the end of the day, I enjoy it. It's one of the creative outlets for me. At the end of the day, as long as the information out there that you're putting out there is solid, whether it's educational or you're just talking about your journey, like, you're going to grow an audience, right? People are going to like you for who you are. If you're too structured and rigid and has to look like a certain way, right, then you're going to be somebody else and not yourself, right? People in today's world of YouTube are looking to be entertained, especially like if you look at the amount of information that's out there, everyone's pushing out the same thing. So how do you differentiate yourself from what is already out there? And it's being your authentic self, right? So that's all I'll say about videos on YouTube, is just make it and send it. I don't care what it looks like, because you're going to learn from it. You're going to figure out what your audience likes, what they want to hear from you. and let that guide the rest of your content creation, not what you think people, that have been doing this for a lot longer, what their self looks like. So, questions about that, or John, anything to add on that with your YouTube journey? You posted done some videos for the Cadre.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
far.
a
What's
couple.
been your
I'm
journey?
definitely not, I'm, by no means am I qualified to give advice on video creation and being a creator and things like that, right? It's not something I ever thought that I would be involved in. I would just say, like, to Phil's point, just be genuine, right? Be yourself. People are probably there's gonna be people out there that don't like you for who you are, no matter what. It's the internet. People make fun of literally anything and everything. So I think go into it with that mindset. Be genuine. Take those knuckleheads for what they are, and then keep at it. Once you hone in on how you want to create and the things you want to do, send it.
What pisses me off about John is that he's naturally good at everything.
Yes.
Like being in front of a camera. I remember editing one of his first videos, and I'm like, dude, you're pretty fucking good.
Yeah,
he had notes and everything, but he doesn't have stutters or or anything like that. I'm like, you motherfucker.
Well, the NRL stage video John did, he just was that was one and done, right? You just did it one try.
There were some technical difficulties going on.
There was some technical. He called. I remember him calling me. Him and Brian, who actually recorded it, and he's like, "Hey, what? We effed this up. Should we just roll?" I was like, "No, we need that footage, dude. You gotta redo it." He's like, "Okay."
Yeah, I mean, it was like a few takes, a couple here's and there's, but
it looked really good though. It was awesome. I really, really like that video. I mean, I can't even figure out how to do this stuff. My internet's going in and out, so.
Yeah. But to the question, just be genuine, be yourself. And, if that's what you want to do, put yourself out there and take the knucklehead comments on the chin and move on. Because, how many people make comments about Phil's man bun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, anytime he does it, he just sits there and breathes and it's like, nice man bun. But
all right, AJD _ 1996. How to approach moving targets for competition? It's gonna be 3 miles an hour, 90% of the time.
Yeah,
push a point.
1.5.
Yeah, push a 0.2.
1.5 to 1.8 is going to be your hold. No, that's a great question. Depends on what type of competition, right? PRS competitions, you're most likely to be given the speed, number one, and number two, if you don't, then there's techniques to figure out the speed if you have a kestrel, right? In terms of figuring out how fast it's going based off of how many mils it travels. You essentially turn your kestrel into a stopwatch or a timer. That's better visually shown than me talking on a podcast. The third approach would be using the time of flight method. Are you guys familiar with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is figuring out your time of flight. That is definitely, movers is a whole nother. I feel like there needs to be a little bit more visual for that than talking on a podcast. But I will say, with regard to moving targets, is if you don't have your trigger press down, in terms of having your controlled brake being more predictable, right, in minimizing your reaction time or your lag time of processing your lead and pressing the trigger, then you're I shouldn't say you're never going to master it, but you're always going to struggle with it, right? And then one thing to keep in mind with that is your lead could be you could be running the same exact rifle setup as your partner, let's say, right? And he goes up there and he needs 1.6. And you try 1.6 to, let's say, assuming you're shooting center mass, and you're like, man, I'm behind it all the time, or whatever, and you don't know where that's at. Well, remember, everyone's reaction time is different, right? So that's the reason why he's a 1.6 and you could be a 1.8 because of your ability, or you could be anticipating whatever that case is. And then you've got your different techniques, right? Ambushing, tracking, and a hybrid track bush, as we taught at cyber school. But yeah, shooting moving targets in competition is definitely a whole nother video itself that I think requires a little bit more visuals to do it justice. So you guys got any more things to add on that?
Phil, I know I've asked you this before, but what was that super a good mover demonstration? But you can't. It's not. There's no trigger cam footage, but just showing that it can be done. What was that video you showed us at sniper school with that guy, and he's like burning it down, and it was a pretty deep mover stage.
It was this is where I learned to run a bolt, like efficiently run a bolt. It's Marcus Blanchard. He's no longer shooting PRS, but that dude inspired me to learn how to run a bolt. He was running a Kelby action, but essentially he was running the mover stage on at sniper side. And I mean, he essentially, if you look at Marcus Blanchard sniper side, like this is like 2015 or 16. I mean, he runs his Kelby action like it sounds like a gas gun, even faster than a gas gun. It slicks. And so if you guys are wondering where I got inspired to run a bolt like a madman, it's from that guy. So
that's kind of an important part about moving targets, just being able to maintain your lead while you're running the bolt, especially if you're trying to all that stuff. So, but that video that you showed at sniper school was like, I was like, oh, it can be done, And then obviously watching your trigger cam footage, from like Altas and stuff like that, it's like, So, but I definitely agree with you that it has to be more of like a demo thing than it is us talking about it on a podcast.
For sure. Okay. Next question. Den Rush Army, building your first custom barrel, or barrel / action.
Hell yeah.
/ trigger. Don't forget the trigger. The trigger is a very important part of the barreled action and multiplies.
Yes, it is.
All right, Eric, I'm gonna lead you off with that one. Then we'll have you lead off.
Default to application.
Dude, wait. I'm gonna say this. Eric has had the worst effing luck with rifle builds since I've known him. Yeah. And truthfully, I mean, you started off with SAC. Unfortunately, things didn't work out with that route, and then you went to another gunsmith that was well known in the industry, and that he ended up building you a crappy rifle that we found out in Arizona. And now you're thankfully with Mark at Spartan, phenomenal gunsmith, probably one of the best gunsmiths in the world. Honestly.
I would
more just not even the gunsmithing aside, just a genuine human being.
Yeah, Mark is amazing, and not to throw shade, but definitely had some bad luck. And actually, that rifle that we had in Arizona was a shooter until Arizona. It just I don't know what happened, but it was Anyways, so
looking at all of your experiences of building guns and lemons, what would be your advice?
I would say if you're gonna build custom, you're gonna get custom quality components. Do your research. There's so many options out there. You have to figure out your application first, right? But once you get into the custom grade actions, they all roughly do the same thing with pretty similar tolerances, obviously, or pretty similar tolerances. But there's just little things. I like Remington 700s, so I default to Defiance because their actions are amazing. Out of the box, it feels like you've put 10,000 rounds down it, and then and then going talking about barrels and stuff like that. Do you want prefits? Do you need are you shooting bench rest? Whatever. There's so many different options, but if I had to pick a barreled action to go with, Defiance and Bartline every time, no questions asked. Trigger Tech triggers, those are going to be my go-tos probably for the rest of my life. I've had so much good since I've been with Mark at Spartan. Every Bartline barrel I've brought him, has turned out to be an absolute hammer. The proof, even the proof that we did for California, that was awesome too. But I don't know if that.
let me play devil's advocate. No, this is great. No, I think it's solid. I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick here. Other than Defiance or Bartline, right? When somebody asks you, okay, hey, what about an Impact versus Defiance, or a Lone Peak versus Defiance, or a Terminus versus Defiance, right? What would your argument be? Or not even argument. What would your advice be to that shooter individual, right? Because you say like, hey, do your research. It's like there's so much out there, right? There's so many different options, right?
Yeah.
So like, how do you funnel that and channelize that?
Unfortunately, it's going to cost money, but you have to run them. You can't, like, the crappy thing is that you can't, like, test out this stuff and put some rounds behind it before you commit like you can, well, you can't really do that anyways, but you can't really, like, you just have to kind of go for it. I would go to a competition and ask a dude, like, hey, that's an Impact action. Like, hey, man, can I put a couple rounds down it? Most of the time, guys will be pretty accommodating. But at the same time, like, a lot of these actions feels really similar. It just takes time behind rifles and different actions to kind of figure out what you like the best. Some action designs are different. Terminus is a 3-lug, right? And they have, I think, 60-degree bolt throws, 60 to 75-degree bolt throws. Even Defiance has 75-degree bolt throws now, which I still like the 90 more than 75. But there are so many options. I think
I'm going to stop right there to interrupt you, but that's really sound advice that you gave about, like, going to a competition, trying somebody's action.
Mm-hmm.
I'm laughing inside because the guy that is waiting for a new shooter to be like, hey, test my action. So that guy that is maybe looking to get sponsored by that company is like, hey, if you throw a good word by name that you got this action because you tested it out this match.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, that 99% of the time, the shooters in your squad will be like, oh, dude, try this rifle setup or whatever, and that is the best way to get hands on equipment. Is by going to a local match. Yeah,
or come to a class. At our classes, I know guys are. I lend out my rifles at classes. I think we all do, not just me. Especially if dudes are having like their stuff's not performing or something like that. So. And other students in the class, they're always pretty gracious and like, hey, try this out, But yeah, there are so many different options, and I think I talk about this a lot, like trying to think back, like if I erase the past however many years I've been behind a gun, or a long gun, right? And like try to think about like I'm coming into the world of long range shooting. Like it would be overwhelming to me to have to like navigate like what products are which. But again, long-winded answer, right? But like now I'm pretty much defaulting to Defiance and Bartline, KRG and Manners. Like they're just components that I've used for a long time. And I've had really good luck. I haven't shot a Lone Peak, and the only Lone Peak actions I've shot were yours, and they are crazy smooth. I like Impact actions. They have a lot of impact. The good thing about Impact is that pretty much someone always has them in stock, and prefits to go with it. So if you care about having like availability like that, if you're going to be shooting like a high volume, I would definitely look at some of those actions. They're also super smooth. Yeah, I mean, long-winded, like you keep saying.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, John. Okay, John, what would your barreled action of choice be? Building a rifle for, let's say PRS. Or no, I take a step back. Budget, like you had under $2,000 to spend on a barreled action and maybe a chassis. What would your setup be?
Ooh,
under $2,000 for a barreled action and a chassis.
Custom.
You're gonna have to do some favors.
Oh, I'm thinking about how much I paid for one of mine. Dude, honestly, the Zermatt TL3 that I have, I really like that. That's it was when I got it, a relatively inexpensive custom action, right? I think it was like 1,200 when I first bought it, right? I don't know that'll keep you under that 2,000 with a chassis in there, but find a stainless steel. For me, I really like Proof, but I also really like Bartline. I've used both. The last Bartline barrel I had shot lights out. I was at 6 Creed. But yeah, either one of those, and then just a stainless steel, just get a blank. And then for a chassis, I think I'd go either for like a cheaper option, probably a KRG X-Ray. That'd probably be my go-tos. I think as far as like the broader question, right? Look at the key features that you want out of the action, right? And that'll narrow you down to a couple different manufacturers as far as who makes what action with what features in your price range, right? And then you could probably use that to kind of guide you going to a match or a class and trying out actions like Eric said. Because at this point in time, to me anyway, a lot of these are like the Dodge, Chevy, Ford argument, right? They all make extremely, high-end quality products. A lot of them have a lot of the same features, right? Whether you're looking for integrated top rail and recoil lug, or, if you are a little bit more on a budget, you can look for ones with, maybe like a not integrated top rail or recoil lug. They're generally a little bit cheaper, right? Where you have to put a rail on with top screws and things like that. Do you want something that offers controlled feed, right? Because that you're going to have to look specifically for that. Prefits, right? If that action has a variety of prefit barrels that are offered for it, so when it does come time to change a barrel, right? Just think little things like that. That'll help at least narrow it down to like, hey, these 3 actions are kind of what I'm looking for, and then you can go out and get your hands on them if that's a possibility for you. I think that's really important. This sport or lifestyle is not cheap. None of these components are cheap, right? So the more you can refine your search and what you actually want before you pull the trigger, the better off you're going to be, right? The whole buy once, cry once. You've heard it said, do your homework, right? That way you don't end up just buying it only to find out it's not really what you were looking for and then trying to sell it, right?
No, that's solid. And man, I want to go back to like as early as like, okay, well, we say what features are you looking for? Like what the features, like do I even need, right?
Exactly.
And is the question,
exactly.
right? And so I would say try to just keep it as simple as like, hey, if you don't know what you don't know, like a push feed is most likely going to be just fine for you. More recently, at the end of the day, like if you're just getting into this, right? There's nothing wrong with a freaking Tika rifle. I stand strongly behind that platform, mainly because of how smooth it is out of the box. But more recently, I've been gravitating to push people toward arrows, just because, again, Remington 700 footprint. I love the fact that it has an AW cut. It's super, affordable in the price range. It's not as smooth as a Tika out of the box, but you're still staying within the Remington 700 platform, right? That way, it's like, hey, you get an arrow, right? You build that bad Larry up, you get a nice chassis for it or stock or whatever. Now you can always, especially if, like John said, if you're ready to upgrade or you now financially committed to this game, you now have the ability to piece together another rifle by taking that arrow barreled action out, putting a nice custom barrel, like a Lone Baker Defiance or whatever in, and again, you can now build another backup trainer rifle, right? Like I do when I pick up something off the prize table. And when I pick up something off the prize table, it actually costs me more money than if I would just left it on the fucking prize table. To be honest with you,
You just buy stuff for it.
Exactly. It's like, oh, now I got to build another gun. So
just like reloading. Everyone lied about reloading saving you money. You just shoot more.
Yeah. Seriously.
At first, it doesn't save you money.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think I'm gonna be in debt forever.
No. All right. Next question. How are we doing on time, John? You doing okay?
We're at 1 hour 18. I'm good.
Is Jason tapping at the door yet?
No, not yet. I got Scout in here with me though. He keeps hearing people start their cars. That's why.
Scouty boy.
Okay. This is the last question that I have in this group of. This is the last question that I have in this set, which is pretty simple. You're a KRG guy. Thoughts on the Echo for a hunting setup? I actually haven't got hands on the Echo yet, but it's pretty much a slimmed down Bravo. But if you look at the price point, I mean, anything KRG makes is pretty solid. I personally never gravitated to the Bravo or the Echo yet, just mainly because, I mean, the X-Ray more than always is what my go-to is, mainly because of the ergonomics of the X-Ray with the thumb hole area is similar to my Whiskey 3 and my C4, right? Whereas like the Bravo, because it is a traditional stock, even though it still kind of feels the same, I just love being able to wrap my hand around, and so that's why I usually gravitate toward the X-Ray. That's why I hunted for the X-Ray with the X-Ray for the longest time. But yeah, the Echo is definitely, anything KRG makes is solid. So definitely look at it if you want to drop your existing Tika into something a little bit more solid than the factory rifle setup or factory stock that it comes with. So that is the questions. I think what I'd love to do, if we've got like 10-15 minutes, and this doesn't have to be, we don't have to beat a dead horse on this, but I did 2 days late, a day ago or 2 days ago, instead of asking like, hey, what questions do you have for us, because I wanted to do a video, was what were some of the mistakes for my experienced shooters that got into long range shooting? What are some of the mistakes that you made getting into precision shooting? So I don't want to list them off here. I want to talk about it with you guys. There's a first from A. Ellenberg. I don't know what her first name. I want to say it's Amy. My phone's bricked right now, so I can't. These are just screenshots. Part 1: trying to get good at every fundamental at once.
Ooh, that's a good one.
We talked about this just the other day.
Yeah, I think this is the last podcast.
In the last podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dive a little deeper, if we can, into that, in terms of like, okay, hey, when you guys remember, if you guys can remember back in your young pig days of being nasty swine, right? And to be fair, there were so many other things in marksmanship that we were worried about, when we're trying to get into this community, right? Like
just
observation, surveillance, and surviving, and like not pissing off our instructors, right? But if we can just isolate the marksmanship, like what would you say if you could remember like what clicked first for you, and then when it did click, when did you start to change your mindset or pivot to like, okay, now I can take on this other task, right? Or I want to continue to refine this because like I feel like I'm not there yet. Because like, when I mean that I'm not there yet is the expectation of like for instance, for wobble zone, right? Like I was never taught a wobble zone at sniper school. Like we were just taught like, hey, I always assumed that my instructors' reticles were dead ass steady every time they were in every position. Swear to God, like I didn't hear about wobble zone until I got into competitive PRS shooting. So I always assumed that my instructor's reticles were just dead nuts every single time they were talking about, building a stable platform. So my last question to you is, like, when you guys were getting into this, like, what were some of your hard focus points, if you guys can remember that far?
Depends what time period. No, you want me to go first, John? You good?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, so
Eric, it wasn't that long for you, so yeah.
no. But so at Urban Sniper, when I was at Urban,
Going through as a student.
Going through as a student, we're doing it's all positional shooting, and I think it was at that point that I realized, like, follow through is probably, to me, like, the most important fundamental of shooting. And like I think you said her name is Amy, like, focusing on one thing. If I could focus on one thing my entire shooting career, it would be follow through, because to me that's when I was at Urban and I figured out, I need to be able to spot my own impact. Follow through is where that happens, but like follow through is also a product of good position shooting, right? Like, you have to be behind the rifle correctly to have good follow through or to see your shot, right? But like being able to just say, even just how about just focusing on the scale of, like, catching your own impact? Like that would be how I would focus mostly on that. Because at sniper school and as a pig, we always had a spotter. We rarely ever shot by ourselves. So we always had someone there. And like, so I'm not, as a pig, I was just like yanking the shot and trying not to get hazed. So I didn't care about where the shot went. I had a spotter to check. But then when you go to, at Urban Sniper, it's like a lot of the stuff's on your own. And to me, that's when a kind of light bulb was like, I need to really focus on being able to spot my own impact, which starts with follow through, which starts with position, body mechanics, stuff like that. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does. No, it's perfect. It's making me. It's really, like, firing up my brain housing right now. I don't know why I say it like that. So essentially, for you, it's like the post shot process, but it goes back to, like, our development as a shooter. Like, you're right. As a sniper, you're taught to train. You shoot with an observer, right? And so, what really mattered was your pre-shot process and not necessarily your post-shot, because your post-shot, somebody's taking care of that for you, right? All you had to do is rerun the bolt and make the correction based off what your observer gave you. But by focusing now on follow-through in your post-shot process, I think what that did subconsciously for you is now focus on what you were doing in your pre-shot, because it was also telling you a lot of giving information of, like, oh, crap, I can't see my shot because my recoil management is trash. Well, was my recoil management trash, right? Is because I'm probably not square. So now it shifts back to your pre-shot process, right? Like, okay, now I need to do something, right? But I think because you didn't have the wherewithal of, like, understanding the post-shot, you just didn't know what was wrong.
Exactly.
Right? Other than maybe something didn't feel right, or the only feedback that you did get was you either hit the target or you didn't. You know what I mean? Like at sniper school, like, you either got a 1 or a 0. And there's no any other feedback from that. No, this is good. All right, John, how about you?
I'm struggling to, like, think of, like, one specific thing, but I think one of the biggest things in my earlier days was probably, like, not emphasizing natural point of aim, right? And skipping through that step, right? And allowing myself to just, like, force my reticle onto the target. And yeah, I think it was, like, quite a while before I really was, like, in my conscious thought, like, hey, find your natural point of aim. Like, do, natural point of aim check, take a breath. Where is it? Where's your reticle fall? Okay, adjust, right? And taking the second or two that it takes to make that small adjustment rather than just fighting through it, right? Yeah, I think to really narrow down, like, one specific thing, that would be it. And then as, like, a broader answer to that question, as far as, like, mistakes you've made, is not taking everything everyone says to be like a universal truth, right? So, like, just because this one guy says this one thing, like this, that doesn't mean it is the end all be all answer, right? There could be another way to do things, or a better way to do things, that they just haven't discovered yet, or that work for you that don't work for them, right? So, kind of just going into everything with an open mind, and not only based off what other people are telling you to do, but also don't get trapped in your own way, and allow yourself to discover new things, right? Not get set in your own way, right? So like when you go to a match or a class and you see someone doing something differently than you do, that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. Maybe it's better, right? And have a open enough mind to try it out, see if it works for you. Take advice and learn from everybody, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it does. Doing A/B testing, I think, is super important, especially early on. That's something that we do in a foundational course, right? Of hey, pressures, right? Like, this is how you actually test to see what pressures will work for you, right? But these are also some of the things that you should be thinking about if you are applying pressure to your rifle system in terms of repeatability and consistency, all these things, right? And I think one of the things that I would highly suggest doing earlier on in your journey are those A/B tests, right? Of like, okay, hey, this person said this one thing, so I'm going to try it. This person says another, and then figuring out what you feel like you prefer based off of the results that it gives you, right? Based off your overall shooting style. But for me, going back to the initial question of like one fundamental, I think one of the things that, going back to even boot camp, that I remember that I like held on to was trigger control, like not slapping the trigger, right? Because the PMIs would give demonstrations on all the time with like the booger slapping. So one of the things that I always emphasized was letting the shot surprise me, right? And so depending on who listens to this, you're like, oh, if the shot surprised you, it's an ND, right? And I go back and forth between this on a precision rifle, right? I think it goes from this kind of goes to your point of Eric of follow through is one of the things that I help with shooters in terms of like helping them follow through a little better is to tell them to shoot for the follow through, right? If they're consciously thinking about follow through, right, then they can kind of accept the wobble that they're having, right, and just be like, okay, I'm just going to press through this wall. If the rifle goes off, it goes off, but I know my reticle, that bullet is hopefully going to land somewhere within my wobble zone if I trust that process. You know what I mean? Versus like the typical like, my wobble zone's all over the place, I'm going to try to time it, right, and snatch the trigger as it's crossing, right? So, my advice would be, shooting for that follow through, to Eric's point of like why follow through is important. And the reason why it's important is because our post shot, or the beginning of our post shot process, tells us everything we need to know about our position and what is potentially wrong with it. Okay, especially if we know what we're looking for. So, that's solid. Great conversation, converting points. Do you guys got any more to add on that? I'm gonna do one more that I think would just tie this podcast off.
I think the only thing I would add for that, right, that mistake, right, trying to focus on all the fundamentals and get good at all the fundamentals at once, right? Yes, consider all the fundamentals while you're, in the beginning of your journey. But as Ron Swanson said, don't half-ass do things, whole-ass one thing, right? So,
yes, I love that.
That's a good one. Yeah,
that needs to go on a shirt. That needs to be in a class PowerPoint. Honestly, that should be a part of our foundation. You should text that to the group chat right now so that it's a part of the curriculum.
I'll remember.
That's a Ron Swanson.
Yeah.
I haven't yet I haven't gotten into the. Well, I mean, I started watching it, but it's so hard to get into shows nowadays with the baby because we got to wait until after he's asleep.
Dude, you know what's hilarious is in my application when I submitted to go do that thing, I put a Parks and Rec quote in there. Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Oh,
It's a good
funny.
quote. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
It's fitting, right?
Uh,
Work hard at work worth doing.
so the second, this is also from Amy, and it is Amy. I looked it up on her Instagram.
For now.
Part 2, thinking that upgrading my gear would allow me to bypass certain fundamentals. She was the first to essentially respond to these, like what your biggest mistake was. And honestly, after that was the most common trend with that I got from everybody. Were around these two essentially principles, right? And then kind of John, what you touched on with following someone else's preference instead of finding my own through fundamental work, right? Like taking somebody's absolutes. But anyways, going back to Amy's, thinking that upgrading my gear would allow me to bypass certain fundamentals.
Well, this is a good one.
Dude, you've said that so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
Okay, so for us, right, like as snipers, one of the things that we were lucky with was the fact that we were all taught on the same platform and system, a proven system that worked, right? M48.5, M48.3, or the for Eric that had all three rifles going through sniper school.
Only 2, but yeah.
three times. No, sorry, I'm giving you.
No, it's good. It's good. I like it.
No, for those that don't know, Eric went through sniper school 3 times. And why this is impressive, just for people that don't know, why this is impressive is the fact that it's very rare that it's a shooter or a Marine comes back for their second attempt, right? Because things happen, especially if they're a little bit more senior, and you know, that it's just like, hey, the Marine Corps doesn't work out for them. You know, it's not what they envisioned, and so they get out after their 4 years, right? But usually when you get to the platoon, it's very rare that you have enough to make 2 deployments or even 3 deployments with your platoon, because by the time you get to sniper platoon, you should be already pretty senior, which means you've already done a deployment, which probably means you only have about 2 years left. And one of the prerequisites to go to sniper school is that you have 18 months left on your contract, or at least a deployment, right? One of those, either one, right?
Yeah.
And Eric went to school. Were you a stay baby, or were you?
Yeah, I was a stay baby.
A regular girl. Okay.
No, I was a stay
okay. So
baby.
you were a stay baby, like me. And so Eric went through the first time. You failed known distance. SAS.
No, 40 by a shot 3 times. I shot 3.
Okay, so
three
known distance
327s.
Was that 2 TAC 15 with Steve?
I
Or
think
was
I
that
was
one
right. I think I was right after. Yeah, I was 1 TAC. Yeah, I think Dude, I always get these mixed up.
Or were you were you my first? Me and John's first class.
I think I was your first class, but it was in 15. I forget which TAC it was. And then I came back I graduated 2 TAC 16. So, yeah, it would have been 1 TAC 15, and then I came back from the second time at 3 TAC 15, broke my ankle.
Yeah.
And then graduated 2 TAC
okay.
16. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so your second attempt, passed marksmanship. And this
Dude,
is
I
where
was-
I kind of feel bad. This is where I feel horrible, right?
Hold
you
on.
had just
Let
finished-
me interject. I was also high shooter and high stalker. That is an important. I was doing good. Sorry.
So, known distance is the first phase of cyber school, which is just shooting on paper at to 1,000 yards on both platforms, M48 and M110. Second phase is unknown distance and stalking, which depending on the class and arguably is one of probably the harder phases to go through, just because the stalking phase really eats a lot of people's lunch. Unknown distance, not so much unless you have a really crappy spotter observer, which we guys in the cyber community will sometimes attest to. But Eric finished second phase, and we were literally getting ready to start third phase, and I think we were like, everyone had passed unknown distance that needed to pass, and we were just kind of, essentially getting guys to experience more kind of dynamic shooting, as I'll call it, So we're on 117 Alpha with the tower, and you and Chad Van Newland, big dude from
Big
1-1.
boy, Chad.
Chad's a good dude, but
Yeah.
dude, you guys came racing down. You guys had to start from the tower, right? Or run up to the tower and came back down.
We had to run all the way up to the top and then come back down. So we started on the firing line. Yeah, ran up top, came back down. Yeah.
With all your with your gear on.
No, we didn't have any gear on, but like Chad is a big dude,
Okay.
and so like one of my strides is like a third of his. So I'm like, really trying to pick up the pick up and go, and like I just jumped those like bottom 2 steps, man, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah. Well, you broke your ankle.
Yeah, I jumped those steps, landed on my toes, and it's called like an avulsion fracture, but I just rolled my ankle so bad it pulled off my bone. And then I remember Curry, because I think we had like that was like the first day of third phase, and then I think like the next day or something we had the 15K, and I couldn't fit a boot on my leg. Like I couldn't, like an issued boot wouldn't go over. Like my ankle was so swollen, and like Trujillo, obviously I am stubborn, so I tried to do it. Trujillo yelled at me and told me to get in the back of the truck. I get dropped off at the schoolhouse, and then I'm taking my boot off, and Curry walks in, and he screams, he's like, "Oh, that's what my ankle looked like when I broke it." And I was like, "Oh, thanks," And then sure enough, I went to the Naval Hospital, and they were like, "Yeah, your ankle's broken." So
yeah. But then you came back the third time and crushed it. But you just picked up on third phase on that one.
Yeah, which was I think that was a privilege too because of the guys there.
Yeah.
Obviously, the instructors there are pretty awesome dudes. But they let me come back for just those last 4 weeks, which sucked because obviously like I had just recovered and I had to run the SS Pat twice because I failed the 20K time.
Yeah.
But
people don't realize that. I'm glad you brought that up. People don't realize the conditioning you get before you get into third phase when you're a sniper school student.
Yeah.
Right? Running the range run, all the stuff. So like if you show up to third phase cold turkey without doing any kind of proper training, like it hurts, right?
It sucks.
As a student, even though there's really not any like other than writing your orders and stuff like that. I think it's more physical than anything. But to back to the point of like, hey Eric, you went to sniper school fucking 3 times. Just says a lot about your willingness to accomplish the mission, right? Because how many pigs out there that get out of the Marine Corps? No shade to them, right? But like, how many pigs out there that get out there and they mother F their command because they never got the opportunity or whatever? It's like, and I believe definitely in good leadership that helps kind of drive somebody's career progression path. But at the same time, like you also let that person control your destiny versus you controlling your own. You know what I mean? So
I mean, I'll give a shout out. I mean, I'm just really stubborn. That's kind of like my thing. That's why I kept going back. And, I put a lot of time in the platoon. But Matt Fechner, when I failed KD, we had, I think right after I failed, because he cleaned it, he shot 35s. But we were at pre-sniper div schools, and he showed up because I checked, like I literally failed, and like the next couple days I was at pre-sniper, which was great. But he showed up to the schoolhouse and was like, dude, like don't rest on your laurels. Basically telling me like it doesn't matter, just don't, even if you passed, like don't ever take that as like when we call it shirts and certs, right? But because I failed, it was like I can't rest on that either. And obviously I have something, I was just being stubborn, but I was very fortunate to have very good leaders kind of guide me. Obviously the instructors of the schoolhouse played a big part in that. But yeah, Fechner was probably 80% of the reason I was like, I need to pass this course.
Fechner's the GOAT, dude.
He's
Matt,
awesome.
If you listen to this, I'll forward this podcast to him to see if he'll take a listen. But Anyways, going back to our original question, because we kind of got out of hand, was the gear question, and we were talking about how as snipers we were issued a rifle platform that works, right? Looking back, if if you didn't have maybe the knowledge that you do have, right? Or if you do, or, and like if you didn't have started off the M48 platform system, was there another rifle system that you started with? Because I think both of you guys were into shooting and hunting even before the Marine Corps, so like it was natural for you guys to progress into snipers. What would that gear setup or rifle setup look like?
Like if I could choose, and like, or are you saying like what if I was to cut corners, what would the gear be?
No, like knowing what you know now and looking at like maybe your first rifle system platform, right? Do you think that first rifle system platform was good enough for the beginning journeys of your understanding of precision and long range shooting?
Absolutely. Yeah, I grew up.
Is there something that you could do to like enhance that rifle system, or just keep it the way that it is and now give yourself more focused training tasks to maximize that specific capability?
I think my first hunting rifle was a 243, like a regular Winchester 243. And, back then, I was probably like 14, 15. Didn't really know, my dad taught me how to shoot, but like didn't have that like formal instruction. But if I can fast forward from that, and like now it's like I'm getting into shooting, like what would my first rifle be? I always recommend 308. Something 308, because it enforces like, if you are, I think I talked about this in that video I did actually, but like if you are not fundamentally sound, it shows in 308, but I would pick a light 308. If I were to do it all over again, I would just start shooting when I was 16, a light 308, and be really good at shooting 308 by the time I got to sniper school.
For me, I don't think I would. I probably wouldn't change anything. I think the A3 was a great platform to learn on, and prior to that, I had only really shot hunting rifles and shotguns, so I think that the A3 that I learned on, it was like you said, it was a 308 Winchester, so great cartridge to learn on. It was a heavy enough rifle that allowed you to shoot it the way it's meant to be shot, but also not 30 pounds to where like your inconsistencies are going to be buffered right by that heavy rifle. Like I think it's kind of like right in the sweet spot, that particular rifle. I don't think I'd really change anything knowing what I know now. Sure, I might like change some aesthetic things that I like now, knowing what as I've grown in my precision shooting career, but I think overall I think it generally fit the bill. Maybe a better bipod.
Ooh. Yeah,
probably be like a better bipod, and I wish we had Arca back then, but
yep.
Yeah,
and better tripods.
Better tripods.
I guess this kind of statement that Amy put is a double-edged sword, because a lot of comments after the fact that people hit on, right, in terms of like what their biggest mistake was is like one was building upon cheap rifles. So it's like, as a new shooter, how do you know that the gear that you have is okay or great, right? And this goes back to like, yeah, obviously buy once, cry once. Like if you buy once, cry once, but like also our goal is to lower the barrier to entry for people to get into this sport so they can, become financially irresponsible down the road, not initially up front. Right. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out how to answer or go about this statement of like thinking that upgrading my gear would allow me to bypass certain fundamentals. So when do you know your gear is shit or not?
So I think as a new shooter, it's going to be really hard for you to tell, right? Whether it's you or your equipment. And it might be a mix of both, right? Your equipment limitations might not be allowing you to perform to your full potential, right? So, not to push this, right, but like getting out there and attending a class, right, from a reputable staff or instructor, and being able to have an objective, someone watch over you objectively and look at your position, look at your fundamentals, and maybe give you a few critiques, and then also dissect your equipment set. That'd probably be, like, if you ask me, the best way for like a new shooter to really understand, like, is it me or is it my gear, right? And am I doing this correctly? And then back to what we talked about earlier in this podcast, is it also gives you the chance to try other people's gear and see, like, man, this feels way better. Why? Like, why did you go with this piece of equipment versus, a different one? And you can learn those things, and hopefully, like we've said a couple times, alleviate some of the stress of like getting the wrong gear to begin with and then having to find the right gear, right? But yeah, I think as a new shooter, that's probably really the only way you get a true answer, because early on in your journey, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yep.
So it's up for someone else who's looking at you solely with the objective of making you a better shooter, and picking apart your position and process and application of the fundamentals. They're going to give you the best answer.
It's shitty. I try not to throw shade because I want to stay as professional as podcast. So if you guys want to know who I'm talking about in a podcast when I make this comment, shoot us a DM and I'll tell you exactly who this manufacturer is. But when a student shows up with a certain rifle, I already know that they're going to have issues with their equipment, right? And again, we don't leave 100 yards for the reason of like essentially equipment checking and system checking to see how everyone's rifles are performing, right? And there's always that one rifle company that it's like, dude, I know this is not going to end well for this person, because they're going to hate the fact that after they shoot these drills and I have to tell them, hey, you invested your money in the wrong system, right? And it's like, this goes back to like, hey, just use mine so that you can have a good experience, because I know my rifle obviously shoots lights out and you're able to apply. Because again, what a lot of people don't realize, especially when you invest, right? I was just doing this math the other day. When you invest all this money into class, right? So if you do a 2-day class, if you're traveling to us, right, you're spending anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000, right, to do a 2-day class, right? Even if it's local to you, right, you're spending at a minimum $2,000 tuition plus ammo plus travel to get there. If you're traveling, you're closer to that $3,000, right? Not including your time off, right? That's a lot of money to invest, which is, again, if you're on the budget side of things, like, that is a whole nother rifle or an optic in itself, right? Sure, it's going to set you off on the right journey, hopefully, but I think more importantly, one of the things that I've loved about having our training company is the community that we've developed with our alumni students, and even just the students that meet each other through courses, right? And finding common interests. There's so many shooters that eventually after class become friends, right? That end up becoming match buddies or whatever, shooting different matches and whatnot, which I think is awesome. So yeah, to John's point, you don't know what you don't know, right? And going to class or a competition is a way to kind of shake that out. That way you're able to see other people's setups and stuff like that. And then also just reach out to us, right? Especially if you are signed up for a class and you don't know what gear to buy. A student just reached out that's coming down to San Diego. He's like, hey, I watched one of your videos. You guys said that you guys like to use a OG Armageddon gear bag with spec like as a rear bag, I'm in the market for another rear bag instead of a front support bag because you guys kind of opened my eyes to that concept. What bag would you recommend? And I was like, hey, hold off on buying a bag. Wait until you try either mine or John's so that you can see, right, if it actually fits your shooting style and what you plan on doing with a precision rifle when we actually put you in these applications, right? Because again, I'm sure between John and I, we have 10 different freaking bags that we can lent out, and we usually do, even if we're flying or traveling. Okay, so that is a good opportunity. Take classes from, again, somebody reputable, like John says, and reach out to them to see if, like, hey, I'm taking this class. Do you have gear that I can borrow, right? Or he can make that announcement, right? More likely than that, even at advanced or even at foundation class, you got guys that have gone through that rabbit hole of gear and they just have like a bunch of bags just sitting in a storage bin somewhere that never worked out for them, right? And so you could always buy it from them. That's probably still brand new, maybe some scuff marks, right? And trust me, there's going to be a lot more, you're going to put a lot of wear and tear on a bag, right? At the end of the day, if we buy, kind of used, I love my rear bags broken in, all my bags broken in. Anyways, off that soapbox.
Dude, I just had this conversation with a guy yesterday. He was asking me a couple questions about equipment and gear if he wants to get into competing, and I just told him, like, you have everything you need right now to at least go shoot a match. Just go out to Paula and shoot the match that they have every month. There'll be people there in your squad with equipment you can borrow, check it out, whatever.
Is this the sniper?
Same advice. Huh?
Is this the sniper?
No, he was a guy in my platoon.
Oh, cool.
But he started shooting recently, and then he built his first gun. He did it right, but that was the same advice. Will, when I first started shooting out at Paula, Will's like, hey, if you ever have a gear question, ask me, because I definitely either have had it, or know someone who has it. So, and I have always found that to be the truth.
Yeah. Do you still have his? Do you still have his 6 Creed dies?
No, I gave him.
You gave him back.
Yeah.
I remember. What was it when you decided to shoot a 6 Creed? I was like, hey, and I just texted Will. Like, I doubt he's using them. So
yeah.
Let's see if he can pass them on to John. But yeah, no, this was great. Hour or close to 2 hours with Eric in and out.
Sorry, guys.
Eric, thanks for joining us. Even though you were having some troubleshooting issues, I think this was great. You gave sound input and advice from experience. Let's do a podcast episode with about who is Eric Dioro. One of the things that that Steve mentioned after we published the last podcast is, like, even doing that for the Cadre is like, hey, instead of like writing out this whole outline of like what we think Eric should talk about who Eric is just ask the audience, like, hey, what do people want to know about who Eric is, right? And kind of let that guide the discussion. And Eric,
dude, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like there's going to be some smart ass comments.
There definitely is going to be.
Which will make it more fun.
I'll be under the gun. Yeah. No, I'm down whenever, guys. I appreciate y'all having me. Sorry for the connectivity issues. That's what happens between the mountains, I guess.
Such is life.
Such is life.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all right. We spent 35 minutes last time for me trying to get my camera to work.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It happens.
Okay.
Well,
last thing, because this is probably the only time I'm going to get you guys before the end of SHOT Show, because as we're recording this, SHOT Show is going on right now. It's the 21st of January. So far, based off what you've seen, what are you excited about, right? And what do you think is just all hype?
Ooh. Well, what I'm excited about is definitely... Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I haven't really seen anything yet. Haven't been following along. I saw the pack that I think Steve sent a picture of yesterday from Everly Stock. That looked pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That new NX6
NX6,
coming
yeah.
out. That looks pretty solid. I'm interested to see what comes of that. And I talked to Steve 2 days ago because someone was asking about the new Gen 3 Razor, the one that's slimmed down a little bit. A buddy of mine was asking about that, asking what people think about it so far. So those are two things, like I guess by proxy, that I'm interested in. But yeah, that's about it for me. Sorry to let you down there, Phil.
I personally, I'm really stoked for the NX6. I think it's going to be a pretty feature-rich scope. I'm also excited to see what the loophole spotter scope. That looks, from what I'm told, it's pretty sick. What I think is hype is probably the new SCAR. That system has had some issues since its inception. And I think they're just, I don't know, whatever. Or anything, yeah. I would say between I think that's going to be a little bit of a whatever, but I think those two optic companies are coming out with some cool stuff, which I definitely want to see, get my hands on, mess around with.
Yeah, I like I haven't really kept a complete foothold on what's coming out there, obviously, other than like some of our partners in the industry that have told us about certain things. I agree. I'm excited for the Night Force NX6 line. I think great option for shooters that are looking to upgrade their current setup or just get into a decent setup off the bat, right, without having to drop 3,000 to 4,000. Again, we live in a day and age where your rifle scope doesn't have to be 3 times the cost of your rifle, and honestly that's impossible nowadays because well, I shouldn't say it's impossible, but more than not, your custom rifle, if it's built out correctly, is going to be closer to that $6,000 to $7,000 mark anyways. Pre-optic, right, was when you do throw an optic on it, it's going to bump up to maybe closer to 10 grand. Those are more for the top level competitive shooters, right? But yeah, you could definitely get into the game with a $1,000 optic and a $1,000 gun, right? In today's world, which is great. I'm excited to check out that new kind of Kestrel from Vortex, right? I think Kestrel dominated the game for the longest time in terms of weather meters, so I'm curious to see how this brings. It's to be honest with you, it's going to be very difficult to compete with Applied Ballistics. I mean, Applied Ballistics is such a staple brand that you really have to outfunction and perform what AB is bringing to the table in terms of compatibility and features and stuff like that they have with their AB Quantum. I think when the AB Quantum works well, I mean, it works phenomenal in terms of the seamless connectivity between all of their programs and whatnot. Obviously, the ballistic solution is freaking accurate, but at a price of obviously a high ticket item to get into that. If you do get AB Quantum at the user level or pro level, whatever the levels they have, it's relatively cheaper than buying a product. But if you still don't want to spend a subscription service, the Hornady Forward Off is just great. We use it all the time. I think it's still more user friendly than the AB system. But another thing, I see new weapon mounted laser rangefinders that come out, I think from Arkin. I think that again, I think that market is definitely going to. I'm curious to see how that evolves, right, within the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, it's coming faster than we thought. But now, because of the beautiful big bill, or the beautiful bill? The BBB?
Big beautiful
I'm messing
bill?
this up. I should know it. Is it the big beautiful bill? Yeah. No more tax stamps, so you're seeing a lot of suppressor companies and new companies start making suppressors. So, again, I think with technology and already proven setups. People are just kind of reverse engineering what top level people do. Not saying that's what everyone's doing, but I think companies that are making suppressors, obviously it's a good industry to be in right now because everyone wants a suppressor while we don't have to pay taxes on it, right? What that's going to lead to is obviously lead times and QC and stuff like that. So just be mindful of that moving. If you are getting in the market for getting a can, right? Is there's nothing wrong with the proven systems that are out there. Sure, you might be waiting for it a little bit in terms of wait time and stuff like that, but I've never once gotten any of my cans from Thunder Beast and been like, I can't believe I waited 18 months for this. You know what I mean? Like it was well worth the wait, right? Because I haven't had any issues. It performs the way that I need it to. And so that's something to think about. But that's all I got. Appreciate you guys. I know it's early in the morning. I've got to get some editing done. But let's do this again. Oh, real quick for you guys that are listening in, myself, John, and potentially Eric, as long as we get closer to filling seats and as long as he can walk around because homeboy had an accident. We'll be down in California, but more importantly, we'll actually be out in. You're coming to Idaho, right? Even though you're not going to shoot.
Yeah, I'll be there. No, I'm gonna shoot.
Ooh. Okay. Are you shooting?
Yeah, dude. I don't. Oh, so
Okay.
like I don't need. I thought I texted you this. I don't need surgery. I just fractured like the top of my tibia, so I'm just gonna be in a brace for a couple months. But like I said, I don't want to have to get in the kneeling. But I'm sure I'll be able to. I'll be okay, man. I'm definitely gonna shoot. Definitely shooting.
Okay. All right. Well, very well.
Very well.
So you'll see all three of us in Idaho in 2 weeks for the NRL Hunter Pro-Am. So maybe if we're able to get another podcast before then, we can talk about our prep or training for NRL Hunter. I think the NRL Hunter is blown up a lot bigger than. I shouldn't say a lot bigger. It's growing rapidly, right? And I feel like other than some of the top level competitors that are putting information out there, there's not too much information revolving around how to prep for NRL Hunter. So that's a subject I'm passionate about just because the employment is very similar to what we experience as snipers. But yeah, so that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great morning and rest of your week.
Same to you guys.
And everyone else listening, thanks. And keep your face on the gun.